Rebecca, can I get roll call?
Do the pledge.
Well, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance first. On it. I gotta do something wrong every time, yeah. Yeah, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You know, I was just reading what it says right here. All right, this is good. Anyway, roll call, please.
Okay, Director Ratterman,
Here.
Director Thomas.
I'm here if you can hear me.
Yep. Director Underhill,
Here.
Director Davidson,
Here.
President Cicada.
Here. Welcome everybody online as well and everybody here today. Thank you for joining us. So at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board considerations. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited, 3 minutes per person. And I would just like to acknowledge that we have a member of the staff, also representative of the SEIU union here, Ryan Sullivan. And they're going to be sending a representative to each of our meetings for a while. And I just want to say thank you. I'm glad you're here. And if there's anything you needed for an agenda item, just make sure you let us know or work with Michael. All right, any public comment? Okay, seeing none. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. The following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that any item be removed for later discussion.
I want to pull 3D.
Let's see, Bertha, pull 3D. Anybody else have anything or want to make a motion?
I move for acceptance of 3A, 3B, 3C, 3E.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Who wants it? Bertha, with that, we'll give it to Bertha. Rebecca? All right, so well, we have two online. Do I have to do a roll call vote? Okay, go ahead.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Underhill, Director Davidson,
Yes.
President Cicada.
Yes. All right, so Bertha, you asked to pull item 3D. You ready for
Yes.
discussion?
One of my questions was the fact that, you know, we're now going in with more than one carrier on our cell tower, and I'm just wondering, and what's that doing to, you know, to our infrastructure? Is it adequate to carry all those?
Yeah, great question. So from what I understand, we've learned a lot in the past few months working with the cell service providers regarding this item. They actually have to provide tower access to each other. So if there's a request made from one, say from Verizon to AT&T to have access to that tower, they have to provide that accommodation, provided that the property owner can provide access also. And so we can provide access, albeit Big Tree's foresight is somewhat tight. And we've told them you have this small piece of real estate from which to work with. But in a nutshell, yeah, I don't see a negative impact to the district and to our operations. It improves flexibility in terms of cell providers throughout the pass, which is a good thing. And we receive some revenue from it.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask specifically about the revenue. You know, I know that you said that it was, what, $500?
It's actually $1,700 per. So the minimum requirement that they would have to provide is $500. And so that's obviously what they offered first. And when we brought this to the engineering committee. We said, I think this has been through a couple iterations. Iteration one was, hey, can you go back and talk to them about lease cost? And so we did, and they came up to, it all totals to $1,700 per. And both were receiving around $1,900 a month. So this will be in addition to. So if we have an AT&T tower that gives us 1970 a month, say, now we're going to get an additional 1,700.
Oh, okay, so that, okay.
Yeah.
And so we have now two.
Right. So there's one at West Point at our Bummerville tank site and the other at Big Trees 4 and 5 site.
But I'm saying the carrier on that.
Right.
still.
So so, I mean, I haven't actually seen the infrastructure with my own two eyes, but from what I understand is there's the cell tower, there's the information, the antenna information from one carrier, and over here, somewhat maybe 10 feet below is the cell equipment for the other carrier.
Yes, because, and I think that's very healthy because up in the past, we didn't have service.
Right.
A lot. And people would just get really frustrated and we have to think in terms of emergency, you know,
Right. Yep, exactly.
safety. So.
Yeah. Yep. It
Mhm.
provides a more comprehensive cell network overall.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Well, so I'm happy to hear that.
What, just to ask another question regarding that. Whatever happened to these cell towers having their own backup generators?
They do. And so that's the part of the site constraint for 4 is you have this small piece where you can put your standby generator to operate your equipment. So as we all know, a big deal after the Butte fire about the requirements for operation, because a lot of the folks just ran out of fuel operating their standby generators. But now there are some requirements, I'm not sure as to the details, that they do operate and they do have to have standby
How
power.
do they fuel?
It's diesel generator. So they actually have folks go out and refuel their sites.
And, you know, provided they can get there
Right.
during
Right.
the winter.
Which we saw last winter. Yeah,
That's another issue.
absolutely.
Mhm,
That's right.
mhm. But at least they're trying, and so, you know, trying to serve their customers, and that, as I say, that is the real benefit as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Jeff, do you have any other questions?
No.
Scott, do you have any questions for Damon regarding this item?
Nope.
Russ, do you have any questions?
We just should have used that as a hammer to reduce our cell phone charges.
I have just a couple of questions. Prior to this happening, were any neighbors notified or were they required to be notified of any towers going up?
So if we were to erect a new tower, absolutely, there would be conversations with the neighbors. There was correspondence with the cell network provider. If there was going to be any equipment that was going to add to any visual change. And from what they provided to the district, that is nominal. So you basically have an extra dish on the cell tower that already exists there. There will be some work at the sites where they're going to have to run, control and conduit to the generators. However, that should not be a negative impact to the property owner.
Okay. And then one other regarding financial, on the income, is there a separate line item or where in our budget does this kind of income fall?
That's a great question. I'm not sure.
So-
I would say other revenue, but I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe for the next finance committee meeting, it'd be nice to see what the income that's been generated here and maybe some other miscellaneous income, perhaps, the recycling of those meters. I'd like to see some of that income, pulled out in the finance committee and then brought in. All right, that's all my question. Go
Okay,
ahead,
I just
Rebecca.
have one more, and I just wanted to ask, our cell tower has been there for how long?
I'm not sure. The one at Big Trees 4, I'm not sure. Charles, do you know how long it's?
At least 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I thought it was longer than that, but okay.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then before that, there were smaller cell towers there.
Oh,
Then-
okay,
then Verizon came in and put in much larger towers.
okay, great.
All right, any other questions? Any public comment? Or there's no public comment on the consent agenda? correct?
Once we bring it up there.
Oh, it is. Okay. Any public comment, either online here today? All right, seeing none.
Move from septic to 3D.
Second,
And Rebecca, we have a first and a second. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes,
Director Underhill,
yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
President Cicada.
Yes. All right, let's move on to new business. Discussion direction regarding potential changes in policy to allow for commercial water or wastewater account modifications. And Damon, we'll start off with you.
Thank you all very much. Rebecca's pulling up a slide that really, we just wanted to kind of, there's a lot in the staff report. There's pretty dense information. And so really, in order to provide an opportunity for the board to talk about these items, we're kind of reverting, going back to the direction that came from the engineering committee, which was provide us a list of high-level bullet points that document some of the revisions that we're looking to see within any ordinance or policy amendment so that we can discuss this and you all can provide direction to us as to how you want to see that proceed. And so really what those are, you know, at the beginning of the staff report, there is just essentially a list of bullets. And let's see what's up here. And those are, one is the ability to consolidate commercial accounts and water meters that serve a commercial property. The other is to temporarily suspend commercial water and sewer accounts. The ability to downsize water accounts / meters based on a review of consumption and or changes in use. And then finally, the ability to install multiple master meters that serve a commercial property, thereby reducing the overall number of water meters and accounts. And so as the staff report then dives into, there are a lot of components with each of those. So you know, in kind of reviewing this as a team, our thoughts were if we can just start basically at the highest level of what the direction from the board will be on those. We all agree, yes, please work on consolidation of commercial accounts. Please work on a methodology for suspension. We can then work to refine each aspect. And if there are components that the board feel are important to include or to review or to analyze, it would be great to hear from you all about what those could be so that staff could work to review and incorporate any of those revisions that might be there.
Okay, so right now we're at discussion, you know.
Yeah, really. So I guess we haven't stopped to ask what the considerations of the board are related to the staff report. But if we are on the right track, great. If there's additional direction for each of those components, would love to hear it. If there are some things that you don't see here, we would love to hear that so we can actually work to craft something to bring back to the board in an effort to have a policy that's well-rounded, that accommodates those revisions moving forward so that we're not continually trying to kind of in fits and starts, make something that works for the district as a whole.
I have a couple of suggestions. One comment on the list that you have here, I think that looks really, really good. However, on the number 3, downsize water accounts metered based on consumption and changes in use. I would want to, I would like to see it be more of, I just want to make sure it's not tied to just consumption. And I'm going to assume that even if somebody wants to make a change, it's probably going to be based on that. But let's say their consumption doesn't change, but they still want to consolidate. I don't want it to be made because of consumption only.
Understood.
That's one of my things.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 things, I'd like to consider some kind of a subsidy. I think CCWD wants to encourage commercial growth. And for some commercial accounts, I think Dean was one of them, he would like to see, you know, perhaps no charge at all for a certain time frame. So I'm not in favor of canceling every other month, suspending it a month and turning it back on. I think
Right.
for suspension, it should be allowed, but with certain terms, a year minimum or whatever that might be. But so to accommodate businesses like, the Big Trees Market, if there is some kind of a subsidy, whether it's CCWD says, well, we give residential subsidies, maybe we do a subsidy for commercial, and maybe they can go to, and I'm just saying, I just want the research done. I'm not saying let's do it. I'm just saying, let's make it part of this research to see if that could possibly be of some assistance. But maybe that research will identify, well, look, the SBA has these little grants that we could use for subsidy purposes. Maybe the county would get on board, to help with some kind of subsidy. And, crafting that, we spoke, it could be like, okay, this business, you can only do it once in a X amount of time period for X amount of time, get a subsidy just to get the new business, to get a foothold, right? They can't spend the $400 a month or whatever it is, for sewer. So if we could subsidize a little bit, or somebody subsidize somehow to get the tenant, a new tenant, let them get in the door 3 months without having that $300 payment, to get their business going. So that way I feel we're still trying to encourage commercial growth. We can't say, don't worry about it, just shut it off when you're not using it. We know that, at least in my opinion, that's not the answer. But as part of this research, see that in there as well. And then what I'd also like to say is when we're going through this stuff, I don't want to always hear that, well, it's really hard to do for some reason or another. We know that. So if we could focus on, let's have a solution, and then ultimately we would have to see, what the financial impact is on the district and, a couple other things. But that's what I'd like to see going forward. And one other little caveat, which I think is important to know, is and correct me if I'm wrong, with residential sewer, it's a base rate. And then the water we know is based on base rate plus consumption. But the sewer's a little bit different. And if they use this, I don't think there's additional sewer fees for residential, it's just base rate. So with that being said, that base rate must be included, it must be determined based on an average monthly water use.
No, so all residential connections are considered one EDU and they pay one EDU rate. And the commercial connections are, we make a determination as to how many EDUs.
Right. So let me finish this. So what I want to know is, to get that EDU, there's some average gallons or cubic feet of something. So whatever, let's say it's 195 gallons a day.
That's what it is.
Okay,
Mhm.
I learned that the other day. So let's say, and then whatever that is a month, somebody do the math for me. And let's say it's 5,800 gallons a month. So I want to know for a commercial, if let's say it's a retail, and I think the way we do it, they have a base rate plus fixtures. So what if we did a base rate up to, look at their water use before you start adding fixtures, for certain types of businesses, with restaurants, they're going to use more water and all that stuff. And so fixtures, are extremely important. But I think just to use as a comparison, if a commercial sewer with one bathroom that is open 5 days a week for an office is paying a lot more in sewer than a 5-bedroom residential house, you know what I'm saying? I think that could be helpful. At least look at it and just see what if the residential has an EDU based on, a certain amount of gallons, then the commercial's base rate should have something like that. And then look at their consumption before you start adding on, oh, well, they have a toilet and a sink and, whatever. I'd like to see that somehow configured in there just to try and make it fair.
So just to clarify though, the 195 is really more, that's a planning tool that we use to size infrastructure, not necessarily to determine a rate. And so the district policy is each single family residence.
It's not a rate, but it does determine capacity fees. No, I mean, I think we're.
Based on
pretty much
sizing
focused here on-
infrastructure,
on
right?
Rates, not capacity fees.
Right.
But there's a distinction there between
Well-
sizing the capacity and determining capacity fee and what the way that we establish the rate. And so that's the distinction. It's an important distinction, I think, in this case. And so we're charging each single family residence one EDU, but we're not doing a calculation on each single family residence as to what the water consumption is to determine their sewer
Right.
bill. And if we were to do that, that would really be a fundamental change in our rate structure.
And virtually impossible.
It would be very
Okay.
difficult to do, but it would be something that we would have to do.
But the thing is, with commercial though, it is a lot more cut and dry. Because we know, for the most part, unless they have landscaping, that if they're consuming water, then there's a measurable percent that we know is going down the drain.
Right.
Right.
I mean, as opposed to a house could be really big with a couple folks in it that aren't using the sewer service hardly at all.
But on
So
that
it's much
same,
more, on commercial, it's a lot more accurate based on their consumption.
is that
I think
correct?
generally that's probably true.
Yeah.
It's easier to nail that down, I think, yeah.
But with what he just said, so you're going to compare okay, they have a big house, 5-bedroom, only 2 people living there, but you have a really small retail office with 1 bathroom and 2 people there. Why do they pay more in sewer? Because they're commercial. They're charged differently than residential.
They are.
And I think there should be tiers of some kind. I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but if we're doing a study, let's
No, I
look
would
at that
disagree
as
that they
well.
are actually, because the same is true for a single, we charge a minimum 1 EDU for commercial customers and a minimum 1 EDU for residential
And
customers.
so tell me, let's pick out Cosmic Court right now. So let's say that, they're paying the water 1 EDU. Well, let's say they are paying 1 EDU, or let's not pick on them. They're paying 1 EDU for water plus consumption. How does a sewer bill work? They have 1 EDU.
So
And where do the other charges come in for like number of toilets? Doesn't that happen?
it doesn't, and when because there's a minimum of 1 EDU per customer. So for each metered unit, there's a minimum of 1 EDU. And that could be, a 900 square foot house
Okay.
with 1 person living in it. So that's where there really isn't a distinction. When we're talking about only customers that are only paying 1 EDU, that's true for residential and that's true for commercial customers as well. The fixture count and all of that really comes into play more when we're talking about the initial capacity assessment.
Right.
And if we're going above 1 EDU.
So that's not included in the monthly rate? Isn't there a little capacity component to that?
There is. And
There's,
so you pay a base rate with a multiplier. So if you have 2.5,
but she's asking, is there capacity in the
gotcha.
commercial rate, is there
Gotcha.
capacity fees being collected? And that's not the case.
that's right.
Capacity
You are right.
fees are paid up front, and they pay for
That's
the
right.
construction of the facilities. That's
Okay.
it.
Right,
So
that's correct.
Their
Right.
monthly bill is base rate plus a multiplier.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So one of the, and kind of, we were talking apples and oranges, so I don't want to kind of cloud everything up by saying they're calculated differently. The analysis is based on, so you can take a commercial account and you can aggregate its use over a year, and you could say have 135 gallons per day on average. And you can look at it in the peak month of business and you could have 235 gallons per day. And so what the district really needs to look at in order to accurately size, due to the variability of commercial accounts, in order to accurately size its infrastructure, is that peak day, peak hour. And so that is why the fixture counts are so critical in calculating what the cost associated with the commercial endeavor is going to be, because if all of those toilets flush at the same time and all those sinks are turned on at the same time, that water needs to vacate and you can't have a toilet backup. And so that's kind of the assessment that's.
Let me try to clarify something. I think Cindy is making an assumption, is there's only a multiplier if the original estimate of their usage was greater than a single family
That's right.
unit. So it would, the commercial, if commercial is deemed to be just 1 ESFU at conception, when they hook up and pay their capacity fee, they pay the same as anybody that's in a house.
Right.
If if they assume
Right.
with the fixture count that the use is double what a house will be, then they pay twice as much. I mean, it's
Yeah,
as simple as that.
And they're
Okay.
gonna have
There
a
is no-
they're gonna have a larger meter. So that's the determination we make to right size the meter.
Yeah.
So it could be a 3/4 inch meter or a 1 inch meter, and
That's
then
right.
there's a multiplier of one base rate that the customer pays.
So if a customer wants to downsize, they could do something like the master meter and be willing to give up, making sure they have enough of what they need at peak time if something changes. In their.
So that's
I don't even
really
know that
getting,
that's-
that brings it back to the policy option here. Sorry.
Well, I
Dr.
mean,
Davidson. Go ahead.
the issue, and I fully support reducing if a development, strip mall, whatever you want to call it, has a change in use and has gone down to, accountants and bookkeepers and there's no restaurant. I mean, I have no problem consolidating those meters as long as their usage stays at the level, I mean, there's still going to be usage. If their usage is below the single family residence, then they should be paying one payment.
And that's
one
easy to
normal
figure
payment.
out.
However, if it's higher than that, they can still consolidate that meter and have a multiple. Like, for instance, if they've got 4 connections now, they're paying 4 times.
Right.
If their usage is such that they can only go to 2 meters or even 1, as long as they can, as long as it sustains their health and safety, because we can't just let them,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
we have an obligation for their health and safety. There's, if it's sprinkle, there's other things.
Right. And
Well, I want to make sure that these types of things are
Mhm.
considered.
Yeah,
This is all that meant to
absolutely.
be.
No,
said.
and these are great questions. This is a good discussion. And I think, but I kind of want to bring it back to us. I think we just came back to that policy question that, and Damon mentioned this at the beginning, but where we are right now is after the engineering committee discussion that we had is just wanting to clarify with the board which of the policy options that we're gonna move forward with. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me and we don't need a vote here, but there's general consensus among the board that we want to create some flexibility for commercial customers to consolidate for a property that has multiple units, consolidate into either a master meter or consolidate multiple units into a smaller number of meters. And then I think where we are right now is staff will then bring back all of these considerations. We'll check in with the engineering committee along the way, or even potentially the full board along the way. But as soon as we can, we'll bring back a fully flushed out ordinance that the board can adopt so we can implement that. But at the stage we're at now, we kind of tried to give the high level in the staff report before we dive into the more detailed level.
Okay.
And so I think we're good on consolidation of multiple meters for a single building. Then there's also the question of whether we want to create flexibility for temporary suspension of meters. I'm not so far hearing much support for that among the board. So that's kind of the high level direction we were looking for.
Well, let's
today.
ask the board
Yeah.
members. You hear us.
Yeah. My concern is the fact that we're going to go out and we're going to, talk to the person who's going to be responsible. And yes, this is the way it is this month. 6 months from now, it's going to change. And so what kind of parameters are we going to
Right.
establish for that? Because I know it says something about looking at it every 2 years, but
So that's kind of what we're looking for is if.
Well, I have a little clarification on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
2-year thing. Currently, what our policy is, if you build a commercial business and the district goes in and does a fixture count and makes an assumption of your capacity, and you pay your capacity, and you start to pay your monthly fees. After 2 years, the district can review that. If you're using more capacity than you originally signed up for and had to change use, we have an opportunity to go back and ask for more capacity fees. Now, I think that the same should be true if it goes the opposite direction. And I also think in our policy that I don't want to have one of these every 6 months.
right.
So
Right.
maybe if we write a policy where the customer after every 2 years, if they want, if they have a change of use, they can come and request that the district review their last 12 months of usage and come up with another estimate for their rate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be doing it every 6 months.
Right. And
But
that's,
I
yeah.
don't think this is the flexibility portion that you might be talking about, right? Do we want some kind of a flexibility for some kind of a temporary suspension somehow? Do we or don't we?
I don't want temporary suspension.
I think there should be. That's my point. So we have a yes and a no. What are you thinking, Bertha? I mean, all I'm asking is for you to bring back the info. I'm not saying that's what we're doing today.
No, and that's
But you
where
know
that
what I
is
mean?
where
I
we're
want the
at. But I just
research.
want to clarify, because I thought earlier, Director Cage said you didn't want a commercial customer deal to turn on and off.
I,
That's kind of
I
what we're talking
don't
about.
want it to
temporary.
turn on and
Right.
off like every other month, but maybe we could say something like, okay, if you want to suspend service for 1 year, let's say, you can't turn it on until then. We want to avoid, because we don't do it for VRBOs, people not using it. I don't think that's the answer, but there is something that can maybe work. I don't know what that answer is.
Wow.
And I would hope that you folks could, come up with some suggestions, but I would say, a year. And then, and I'm thinking of the big trees, that won't work because I know he's looking for something to help get new tenants in and get them on their feet. So maybe the subsidy thing. And again, I'm bringing these up as ideas for discussion. I'm not saying that's what I'm totally going to vote on today. I want us to look at it and really take a look at it and see if it's a possibility. It'd be nice to, give back to the community and help where we can, but we can't give away the farm.
Well, yeah, because you're saying about a subsidy, and so we have to pin down, where's that subsidy coming?
Well, I know that's
Yeah.
what the research is gonna be.
Well, so
That's all.
just
I
to
have
clarify,
ideas.
The rules are pretty clear.
Yeah.
We cannot have other people pay for somebody else's.
But that's using rate money. How do we do it for our residential that we
right, we
have?
can't
that-
use rate revenue.
Right, but we have other revenue we can use just like we do for residential. But I was just making a comment. And you know what? I would love to be on a committee working with you folks. And I know it was ixnayed before, but just suggestions, like I said here, we could reach out to counties. Does the county have any type of pot of funds that we could use to contribute to a subsidy for commercial
Or,
encouragement of commercial use?
or,
It's a COVID
or
funds
the
that they have.
SBA.
Right.
Or
And
the
yeah, and I said
SBA.
SBA.
Uh-huh.
So these are just things let's look at. I'm not saying, oh, CCWD is going to say, here's the money. You know what I mean? It's more to it than that, but let's think of solutions and we could probably all come up with, oh, no, we can't do it. We don't want to spend, 100 grand on that. But let's try and be creative and see. And if we do the numbers and research and it just doesn't work, it doesn't work.
So a couple
But-
of different, I just want to make sure we're tracking, because on the subsidy question, we do have that relationship with the county. And there's recently the county started a task force that's focused more towards housing
I
and
saw
the
that,
impediments
yeah.
on housing. And we're a member of that. We're going to participate in that effort. I think commercial discussion, the
good
commercial capacity discussion should be a part of that same conversation. It's the same people, essentially. It's economic development. It's not actually that task force really led by housing. But it's really, yeah, that's kind of where that level happens, that conversation happens at the staff level with the county. The other question though, on the temporary suspension, I just want to make sure we're clear about that, because we can talk to the commercial customers that are interested in that. I suspect if we say there's a 1-year minimum or something along those lines,
May
they're
not
probably
work
going to
so
say
well.
it doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't really be worth our time necessarily to pursue that if it's not something that would be utilized anyway.
But what if somebody just buys it and there's all kinds of work to be done and they postpone work for a little bit? I mean, it could be used then. I'm just saying that I think we should do
Well, we
everything we
wouldn't-
can.
We wouldn't temporarily suspend probably in that circumstance. They're going to be using water during that time period.
True.
And perhaps,
And then you
perhaps
can't,
just
'cause you gotta
from a
have
high
water to
level-
put it down or whatever.
consolidation might meet the same
Yes, I
objective as
Okay,
if you're going to have a business in.
okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear what
Because-
Scott has
yeah.
to say.
Well,
Let's give
okay,
Scott a
one
chance
more-
real quick.
One more statement, and
Sorry, Scott.
time is the big issue, how are we going to establish parameters for that?
Right.
Well, that's what this study is for. To figure all
Okay,
this out.
but no,
Okay,
no.
let's,
All right, so let's talk about time two ways. We're gonna study it, but how long is it gonna take us?
to do the study?
Mhm.
Well,
Well-
we are going to be contracting with a consultant to do the rate study. So potentially some of this can be put in there, who knows? But let's give Scott a chance to say something real quick. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in quickly, and I know we're trying to take a poll here, and we got two board members. Bertha didn't answer, but I'm not in favor of turning on off. That I don't think that works. And subsidies, I don't think I'm in favor of as well. It's going to come out of some pot of money we have, and subsidizing commercial accounts just doesn't seem like the right thing to do for a utility district.
Okay,
And
Russ.
and on the topic of timing, real quick, just to clarify, if the direction, I think we can approach these differently, right? So if the direction from the board is, if there's no objections and the board is clear, staff get to work on a policy for consolidation of commercial meters. We don't need a study for that. We'll get back to work on a policy and bring that back as quickly as we can. And then we could also evaluate these things. You know, we don't need to answer all of the questions. We can move that policy discussion forward and continue to have conversations with the county about where those
Right.
grant funds
And-
and money might be available, even if it's not the district
Right.
subsidizing.
Right. And, you know, I wouldn't mind that, but if the rest of the board doesn't want to do it, then I certainly am not going to stand in the way and say, do it. I mean, I couldn't anyway. So I want to follow with what the rest of the board says. I'm just trying to come up with some.
But just to clarify,
suggestions.
we would always be at the table if there's ways for us to support, commercial customers,
Yeah.
if there's grant funds available, if there's ways for us to collaborate with the county on that stuff, we're always.
And we should
put
be
that
looking at
on.
that. Let's see what Russ has to say. Go ahead, Russ.
Okay, comparing this to the residential rate assistance, I don't think it's proper to call it a subsidy, but the way it was set up, and I'm sure it continues to be this way, is that a residential customer can't qualify for the rate assistance program unless they are already on the PG&E program or something equivalent. So I think that it'd be difficult, maybe insurmountably difficult to do it on the commercial side. But I'm really not opposed to having the ability going to the shutting on or off. I think that we might have been able to contribute to the savings of some of our small commercial businesses during the pandemic if we would have been able to recognize that there comes along every 100 years a situation that people really don't have much control over, like the government shutting down their ability to keep their doors open. I think we ought to explore some language that might provide for catastrophic circumstances that doesn't require that their building burn down and be gone for 2 years in order to shut their meter off. I'm just saying we need to be flexible.
Okay, so you have two. Bertha, you're the tiebreaker here. Do you want them to focus on any flexibility? And again, we're not voting to do it. We're just voting to giving a consensus for them to put a little bit of time into researching that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you have a little bit of direction for, suspending service temporarily, whatever you guys come up with on that, we'll look at that. And then as far as subsidy goes, that sounds like don't waste time, but keep your eye open if there's some kind of county commercial thing going on.
Or as I say, the SBA.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, I could work on some of that my own if I wanted to. So with that being said, are we ready to open up for public comment?
I still have some comments on it.
Okay, go for it.
But the one thing I think that the board wants to see happen for time's sake, because I keep hearing talking about, well, we get this information and then we can do the rate study. I prefer to come up with solutions, create some policy, and then have that policy become active, and then we can do our rate study. I mean, because the rate study is going to take 6-8 months, right?
And we weren't suggesting waiting for that for these options that we've outlined here.
All right, I just
So
want
yeah.
I want to be clear on that.
Part of the point of
we're
this
gonna tell them
exercise, yeah.
What to do, but I also want to remind everybody here, for the most part, what this is going to do is going to raise rates. okay? It's gonna raise your average person's rates. So let's just be clear on that.
Explain.
Explain?
Mhm.
Okay, if we make an assumption of how much we need from our ratepayers, commercial and residential, every budget. Okay, if we're reducing the cost of one sector, the rest, because I mean, the costs aren't going to go down. I mean, it's, you know, because it's not about necessarily how much sewage is treated. It's about the bureaucracy and all that stuff. That's where the cost is. So we're going to have other people supporting this, or we're going to have a different rate structure for commercial because we changed that. So the average rate may go up slightly on commercial to make up for the lost revenue. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying. I don't know if that's has to happen. The way I look at it is we look at our expenses and where can we trim that to make up? And I think once it levels out, I think at first it's going to go, oh shoot, we lost X amount, but I think it might ultimately level out. But let them do this.
I have
Let's
some
see
other-
what
I have
happens.
some other things here.
Okay.
The one thing I want to do when we're talking about consolidating meters, I think we need to have several classes of user. For instance, if a strip mall is or a development is occupied by a pizza parlor and 4 accountants, then I would expect there to be 2 meters there, one for the pizza parlor and one that could handle the 3 accountants or whoever they are. So I think we need to come up with a use category that needs to have a meter no matter what, independent. And then I also think we need to make it clear that that after our meter, it's the owner's responsibility after that. They're gonna have to spend some money to retrofit their properties to accommodate this, and they're gonna be responsible to collect all the billing from their tenants.
Right.
Which is something that we do currently. And so I think we need to make that clear so the property owners know that there is going to be a cost and more responsibility on them to do this.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And then capacity you're going to talk about.
What's that?
And then also one other caveat to make sure they're aware that, you know, if you do this, you may not have the capacity available if you want to grow your
Right,
business again.
right.
That should be on there.
Well, yeah, if they downsize their capacity, and I
And then
think we
No
need to
guarantee
get some
we
legal
give it
answers.
away. Yeah.
We need to get some legal answers on that because there's some Supreme Court law that
That's
may
otherwise.
differ with that, but
Is it time for Scott and Russ to respond to you? Okay. Russ, do you have anything in response to what Jeff just said?
I don't have, wait a minute, let's see. I don't have any contradiction to what he is saying, but I think that we make a mistake by thinking that if we do make this change and we do give some flexibility, that is going to have a catastrophic effect on the rest of the ratepayers. The financial considerations portion of this staff report talks about CCWD has about 85 commercial accounts that could qualify for consolidation. And those could be reduced down to 13. So that means that 75 would be gone, but they're not going to be gone entirely. They're just going to be reduced or potentially reduced in the financial requirements of those 75 or 72. But when you know, just raw numbers, if you spread that decrease in revenue over 13,000 residential customers or thereabouts, it's not enough to bother you if it was stuck in your eye. I mean, it's a, you know, maybe 30 cents of I haven't done the arithmetic on it, but it's not anything that anybody would object to, I don't think. That's my thought.
Thank you, Russ. Scott?
Yeah, I don't, one of the reasons is that I'm not in agreement with being able to have the ability to turn your meters on and off or basically quit paying your bill because your circumstances changed at your business, that's not sustainable for a public agency. And it's according to the staff report under financial considerations, it's $15,000 every other month potentially, which will affect our. It'd be difficult to do a rate study with the the fluctuation of income being that variable. I think it would be very difficult. I'm interested in to see what staff comes up with on that subject. But just doesn't seem like a great idea to have that many customers being able to decide themselves during, after we've created done our 218 and done our rate study and implemented these rates, that after that the income could fluctuate substantially. It just doesn't seem like a good road to go down.
I just have one thought, and that's the comment being made that residents would pay for commercial, and the two don't mix. That
Exactly. Someone will have to come up with that extra income for the
Right.
sustainability of the agency.
we cannot.
That's, yeah. And then what's to say that our rental market isn't going to come in here and say, hey, we want the same deal?
Right. Yeah. If you're tenant, you have an apartment building and you lose, several tenants. That's how often that happens all the time. And that'd be I guess that's a commercial account as well. So are we talking about apartment buildings?
You make
We
it,
did not look at them in the staff report, but we have looked at them in the analysis of the overall potential.
Okay, so
But-
it's not a commercial account though, right?
No,
So would
it's
that be-
multifamily.
It's a businessman who owns an apartment complex and he loses tenants. How
Right.
dissimilar is that to a strip mall?
because you have a single family dwelling or multifamily dwelling, it's where some human can inhabit it for X amount of time as a dwelling. And commercial businesses generally aren't dwellings. They're just there for a retail store or a restaurant. It's not
So the
considered
use-
somebody
so the
to
use of
lay
the
their
building-
head.
The use of the building is different, but the businessman who owns that type of building versus a building that has, whether the tenants are whether they're using their use is what you're talking, is what we're talking about. That's as a businessman, you decide to go into that, building that type of a building. Are we being fair to that customer by allowing this businessman to do that because he's got commercial tenants, but if you have residential tenants, you can't do it. And he may be suffering just as much, if not worse. It's just kind of I think it'd be a tough road to go down and try and make this fair, and that's not even taking into account that income is going to come from somewhere. This district will continue running, and we'll have to go somewhere else to get the income necessary to come back to even.
But on the other side of that, if you want to talk fairness, commercials do not have any way to subsidize, but our residential accounts do. So that's not fair if you want to go apples to apples. However, I think we should still do a little research on what can happen. And when I'm talking turning them off and on, I would see something along the lines of, okay, each, business strip mall, or let's say, can have, 2 shut-off services in a X amount of period time, in 2 years. After that, that's it. The goal would be to help encourage, get those spots filled, and they stay filled, then they can afford their payment. That's the way I would look at it, but whatever.
One thing I might go for is conditions. Currently, the only conditions we have for suspension of service is fire.
A destroyed facility or something.
Or damage, but
Uninhabitable for
okay.
residential.
Well,
Right.
one thing that's uninhabitable is if somebody is doing an extensive remodel, maybe a 6-month remodel. And obviously they still need the water, but if they're doing a complete remodel or something like that, maybe we allow them in that circumstance or a big change of use to suspend their sewer service.
And they can't do a call up and say, I want to suspend it this month. That's not what I'm looking
You have to have a
for.
building permit.
Well, but you have to have certain parameters with how long it
I
can
just
be
told you
done.
what I thought the parameters should be. Building.
How long? Well, I don't want to argue with you. I think they should research it and see if they can come up with something that we all might agree.
Okay, are you writing all this down?
My hand is smoking. Yeah. I'll ask Rebecca later.
If
I
I could make,
think ultimately,
He just
we're
got
trying to
that
come
done.
up with something.
So, but that, to be clear,
Damon.
that's residential and commercial?
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
I I think it's independent of, because you can remodel a I mean, that doesn't occur that often in a house. I mean, I wouldn't want that, but I'm saying if, you know.
Oh, so only commercial. I just want to
Yeah,
clarify.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the, I mean, that is what we're discussing here. But I
well,
can see that. I mean, if somebody's gonna go through a 6-month remodel on their property
we
or
just
something.
bought it and whatnot. But see, this is the kind of stuff that we want you folks to put your heads together, and you kind of heard what we all said. We're all similar but different. And see if you guys can come up with something. And if you can't, we can't, but.
So
Russ,
do you feel you get,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's
refreshing, is that what you're gonna say, refreshing?
Refrustrating, is that?
No, I was
Create a new word.
No, I was gonna say, I was gonna talk about the conversation related to where those costs go, should we do this work? And I
Right.
was gonna say, that's very helpful to staff that you all acknowledge that, because that is our core
Right.
challenge, and that's our core mission, is to try to provide equitable service and costs. As
Our
much as
O&M
we,
cost doesn't go down when a customer decides to remodel, even if they're not using the wastewater facility for 6 months, that doesn't decrease the district's cost.
Well, that's the
That
point,
debate.
that's the point I wanted to make, because, you know, so often somebody will come up and say, you know, hey, I only have one toilet and there's only 2 people in the office. And, you know, they think it's all about treatment of sewage. It isn't.
no,
No, It's the billing, it's the staff, it's our rehabilitation program. We spent, you know, how many tens of millions of dollars have we spent in the last few years, you know, through the rate structure? It's paid for through the rate structure to improve these old decrepit, you know, systems that we have. I mean, we've done a great job in modernization, but I mean, it is not the treatment of the sewage, and nor is it the consumption of water. That is not, that is a 1% of your bill. The treatment, maybe treatment's a little bit higher, but it's under 10% of what your bill is related to the treatment cost.
Right.
The rest is regulations, staff, retirement, all the other things that are thrown into this.
Right. And I think that, to your earlier point, those costs don't change if a customer temporarily shuts off. So we are effectively subsidizing it from somewhere.
Right.
It's just a question, you know, so we just want to be upfront about where the subsidy is coming from and what the trade-offs are.
Okay, so, board, do you have anything else to say? I'd like to open up, see if there's any public comment. Russ?
okay, I want to go back to what Jeff said initially, is that he recognizes that there should be some analysis given to the consumption of water when you're determining these demand factors for a particular building. And so far, we've talked about what are we going to do for the existing buildings, you know, that might seek some relief or some modification. But the policy, of course, is going to have long-range ramifications, because it should also keep it firmly in focus what this will do to future business opportunities. So somebody who's interested in building a, you know, what pops into my mind is like at the Coppertown Square, they have a lot of plans about building some things that I've seen mentioned about mixed use facilities, where there would be a residential building, a residential component of a like a live above your dress shop, or live above your professional design service or something. So you know, I'd like to see this happen in a way that it doesn't have to be redone 2 or 3 years from now, that it will last a long time. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Scott, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
All right.
So
Anybody
can I
further?
just I just want to clarify
Absolutely.
real quick to make sure we've captured, I'm not going to get into all the different bullet points that we'll go back and review and make sure we take everything into consideration. But one clarification I think that would be helpful for us is prioritization. And I think that it's going to take some time to evaluate all of those considerations when it comes to where a subsidy would come from and temporary suspension of service and how those things are linked versus the the consolidation of meters for commercial units.
I
where
think that's an easier
one where it seems like there's clear consensus on that. And so the takeaway here, it sounds like, is staff prioritize that. Let's get it done as soon as possible.
Bring it
And
back
let's
in August.
also evaluate what we can do,
Well,
if we can do anything on temporary suspension. of
Along
service.
with that is, the change of use of the facility. I mean, it's not just consolidation.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
of
right.
that nuance
Yeah,
has to get
If
dialed
they're-
in there.
if they've dropped, 10 times their
Yes,
equivalent usage,
Yeah,
we ought to have a consideration for their rate in regards.
absolutely. There's
I
a
don't
lot
think
of,
that's
there's a
hard
lot
to
of
do.
nuance there that we'll evaluate as we develop that policy, but that being, the initial priority to bring that back as quickly as possible. I just want to make sure everybody's, I'm not misunderstanding.
I want a commitment out of you when you're bringing that one back, that consolidation. No later than
How about the soonest is
What'd you learn yesterday?
the latest is,
August?
no, but August of what year? No, it's, I want it brought to the board and maybe in a rough draft, let's
Well,
bring a rough draft
so
back
we've
and
put
then
a lot of thought into
finalize.
this.
in the
We've talked
second
about this a
week.
lot already.
I
I
know,
think a
yeah.
realistic time frame, our goal is to get it back to the board by the second meeting in August with a check-in with the well, I guess we don't have an engineering committee scheduled between now and then. If needed, if we need more input, we can schedule that. But I think,
Well,
hopefully we
that,
can
yeah,
have that.
that was going to be my question. Do you have all the data that you're going to need?
we have a good start for, I mean, for the
Okay, so you're
consolidation,
gonna
change of use question, yes, we have a lot of information that we can.
You're gonna
And actually,
shoot
the
to bring
goal
it
would be to
back,
bring
ready
back an
for
ordinance
public
that's-
hearing on an ordinance change and everything,
That-
the second meeting.
And there are a lot of layers here, so there's a lot to consider. That's a very quick turnaround for this kind of a policy, but that to me seems like a realistic goal.
That could be
Yeah,
a
it
good
does.
solution until.
Like-
Jessica.
So I like
Charles,
that. So let's
throw stuff at
hear-
me if I'm out of line here, because there's a lot that comes into it across, multiple departments. But I think if we can get it back to the board on that timeframe, it is an ordinance, it has to be an
How-
ordinance to adopt it, and then we have a 60-day waiting period of
60
the
day,
adoption.
yeah.
of the
So we got to
ordinance.
get on
So-
that. If you have any issues, you can let us know. And as long as we're knowing, but I don't want to keep hearing, we're working on it and blah, blah, blah. So we'll see it in the second meeting of August. But
You have
before we
your-
go any further, is there any public comment from anybody here? I'm looking at the two of you. You want anything to say? Are you okay with what we're talking about here? or- Why don't you come up to here so that way Russ and Scott can make sure. Thank you. This
As
is
a
the man.
commercial building location, I will talk about the few points that you guys made. I understand trying to close them off when, you don't have any tenants and stuff. We personally have never asked you guys to do that.
Right.
Because we understand that as well, because sometimes you could have turnover, someone moves out and 1 month later, someone's in. So we understand. And that would be a hard period, like you said, to do a whole year, because you just never know. So we never had that issue. The only issue that we do have is we're trying to combine 4 into 1, because we did find out we only have one pipe coming from the road, which was originally a 1 meter. And then we actually only do have 1 sewer in that whole entire building. And then the other issue we have is that we didn't understand why we're paying 4 meters. So we're paying about, just say roughly, $1,300 a month for 4 toilets, I guess you could say, right? And we own a church that has 2 toilets and they're only paying $400,
Yeah,
every
so
few
how does
months.
that work?
So that's another kind of issue we have. Of course, I know we're in the next subject too, which so a lot of those make good points up there. I mean, I understand and agree that it'd be kind of hard to shut down and turn off waters and all that kind of stuff. But the combining of meters, or like Jeff said, where if it's, a restaurant and then accountants, I totally agree with
Yeah,
that
that makes
too. That is
sense, yeah.
one reason why our building got switched over to 4 meters, is because there was a restaurant at one time. Now we actually are just offices, and that is what the owner is going to keep it at. So we want to see if we could get it situated back where we have 1 meter, and 1 meter technically is only working right now too. There's no water, no sewer going through any of those 3 other meters. And we've been paying, yes, they are
Before you
disconnected.
go on further of that, is there any other comments regarding, they're going to go back to the drawing board? Is there anything you want to contribute to that? And then we'll bring you back up at the next item. Is that
Right,
okay?
and I think just to clarify too, amending the policy to create the flexibility to consolidate meters, to consolidate not just water meters, but to consolidate those accounts addresses that issue.
Mhm.
Right, so that's what we're talking about here. I totally understand. You guys have never asked for the temporary suspension of service. That's been brought up in other contexts, and so we're trying to
Yeah.
make sure we contemplate
Right.
everything here. But we would be working towards a policy, I think, that does address the consolidation of commercial accounts that we currently don't have the flexibility.
And I know, I feel like we kind of are the ones who are pushing this issue with what you guys are having to go through right now. And we all appreciate it, but it's just frustrating that this has been 2 years now that we've been going through this. And then other issues have came up where the owner, which is right there, I'm actually his daughter, so that's the reason I'm talking to him for him. But they originally signed a paper, and we were misinformed, or whoever was misinformed, thinking that we actually were the ones who signed the 4 meters, put the 4 meters in, sorry. But we were not. We were just
Right.
told, you are new owners, this is what you need to do. I personally was the one who called and confronted, I don't know the lady in the office I talked to, but asked them if there would be any other possible way to, combine these. We are 1 building, we are just an office now, all this stuff. And I pretty much was told, no, it will never
Once again,
happen.
we're getting into the,
Yeah,
Unless-
so,
okay.
no, sorry. No, yeah, let us talk about that, and then we'll bring you up. I think a lot of us have the history on that. Anyway.
well,
the next
listen, I'm gonna
subject.
be recusing myself from the next item. So I just don't want it to continue to go on. And
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, so is there any public comment online? Okay, so seeing no public comment online, I think you have direction, and no vote or anything needed. Now we'll move on to.
Thank you.
No, I just want to make a final comment. I mean, I really want us to work as fast as we can to clean this up, because, again, I'm going to recuse myself on the next item, because I have currently hold a lease with this gentleman. I just kind of realized that we did who the landowner was before this meeting. So I'm going to step out during that. I just really want to try to get this cleaned up so we have, solid policies, so everybody can be treated equally,
Gotcha.
with actual policy from the district. I think
Right,
it's
gotcha.
important
No,
to
I
do that.
agree.
I think
No.
we're all on that
Yeah,
same page,
yeah.
and staff is too, I think. Okay, we good? All right, we're gonna move on to item 4B, discussion action regarding a variance
Okay,
request.
Step out.
Okay. Are you coming back? We know your history, Jeff, don't. Is there anything else we need you on? Okay, so again, discussion action regarding a variance request from the owner of 49 Cosmic Court, Copperopolis. And Jessica's gonna start this off. Hello,
Yeah.
Miss Jessica.
Hi. So I just want to give a quick summary of the memo that was submitted to the board packet. So Anthony and Deborah Benitez are the owners of 49 Cosmic Court. Currently, there are 4 5/8-inch meters at each suite. There's suites A, B, C, and D. In July of 2020, the customers modified the plumbing to bypass the meters for suites A, B, and C. And those meters have not been in consumption since this time. Suite D, and then also a landscape meter, has consumed water and has been billed on a continuous basis for regular consumption. And each of these 4 units are served by a separate wastewater account and billed the bi-monthly minimum of 1 equivalent dwelling unit or EDU.
Which is how much?
It is the new rates, which we'll talk about, are 206.18.
So the 206.18 times 4 bi-monthly.
Correct. So the customers did contact CCWD after the modifications were made to the water meters. And CCWD has met with the customers numerous times over the past 2 years. The customers have consistently wished that the 3 water and 3 wastewater accounts be terminated, and have asked for 1 master meter. And currently, as we've discussed, there is no policy in place for CCWD staff to accommodate this. As we discussed in the last agenda item, we are working closely, staff is working closely with the engineering committee to make adjustments to our policy to provide flexibilities if able. And then once we do make these updates, as Michael's just stated, it will be a 60-day. It cannot go into effect for 60 days after that. So at the very soonest, it would be late October of 2022. So as far as Mr. and Mrs. Benitez, they did submit a variance request. We received it on July 7th of 2022. The letter requested a variance to be relieved of payment for the sewer accounts and water meters serving suites A, B, and C, and stated that they would like to be relieved of payment until the ordinance has been reviewed and updated. And in addition, within that variance request, they acknowledged that they understand that a reduction in accounts is also equivalent to the forfeiture of current capacity. As we're moving through this, like I said, the engineering committee is working on updating our policy and staff. The engineering department, customer service department, and many others have been actively looking into all this. And as far as this variance request is concerned, the financial considerations, if all 3 water and wastewater accounts are no longer charged, it will result in a combination of $618.54 in wastewater base rates and $361.05 in water bi-monthly base rates. However, that doesn't come in. We must also consider, or potentially this is up to the board, as far as considering with the water and wastewater rates for the base rate, we must consider fixture count, water use, and that 1 EDU for wastewater rates, if we do consider the fixture count, would increase to 2.2 EDUs.
Yeah, I can say something.
Because I'm looking at what it is, and so it's roughly $1,000.
Well, so just to clarify that last point, because I think it's important, and obviously the details of the revised policy are yet to be, finalized. But if we were to look at this building as a commercial customer with 1 wastewater service, the fixture count based on our demand factor table would be 2.2 EDUs. So it wouldn't be reducing it from 4 to 1. It would be reducing it from 4 to 2.2.
Is that demand factor based on their current consumption?
Based on sinks and toilets.
Fixtures. So
Okay.
there is 1 toilet and 1 sink in each suite. So we had to use that to calculate the.
So if I'm all in favor of a variance. I think something should take place until we come back with a change. Just because we know they've already been disconnected and have been for some time now, but they're connected based on kind of a master meter. So instead of having them pay, their request is 1 sewer and 1 water, could we make the variance be like charging them how we would for a master meter. So it would be the 1-in-1 plus fixtures, right? It would still be less than what they're paying today.
It would be 1 5/8" meter and 2.2 EDUs on the.
Okay, so
other
what
side.
would that dollar amount be compared? Would they be saving money?
Yes.
Correct.
So that's what I would recommend, but I'd like to hear what everybody else says. Sorry.
And tell me what we're talking about money-wise?
So the dollar amount would be if you adopted this variance request at that level, the water would not change. So this is base rate. This is
Are
not
you saying the
consumption.
master meter or just 1-in-1?
So the master meter.
Okay, what would it?
So the base rate, so not consumption, would not change. So this is also, we have new updated fees going into place, or rates going into place on July 16th. So this is starting July 16th, that base rate consumption for water, because they would still fall in the 5/8 meter level, is $120.35.
Okay.
For wastewater at 2.2 EDUs, and that's taking into consideration all of those fixtures, would be $453.60.
And what do they currently pay right now?
So the current payment for all 4 suites at base rate would be at $1,306.12. And if the variance at that, what we just stated, it would be at $573.95, which is a bi-monthly difference of $732.17.
So how the rest of the board members feel about issuing a variance, but doing it based on master meter, current master meter billing? Instead of doing the 1-in-1 like they request, make the variance that I would like to see approved, be it billed just like we would anybody else with a master meter.
Okay, and tell me the money
And
again.
so it would
For which
be roughly for,
So the total amount, this is
5
base
something.
rate, current, as of July 16, 2022, with our new rates, is $1,306.12. With what Cindy just suggested, it would be at $573.95.
So they,
A difference of $732.17.
so with that being said, though, when we bring back this approval and they consolidate, which they already have, that's what it would be. So why not, and instead of give them what they're asking 1-in-1, which would be even less, right?
right.
If we do it based on the current master meter billing, and I expect we'll approve it, but if we do, or let's say we do, then we don't make any changes to their billing. It's already there. If it comes back differently, then I would like to potentially, reserve the right. So today we do it just like we just said, but let's say we bring that ordinance change back and we make a couple little changes where potentially they would owe more, then I would say we could charge back. If they owe less, we could make a change. I don't think that'll happen. Do you see any reason why it would change based on our ordinance update from the way we currently do a master meter?
At this point, I don't, but there are a lot of details that still have to be resolved in the adoption of the policy. So if that was the direction the board wanted to go in, I would, and I don't know, Matt, if you want to chime in here, but I would say we just do it and that is the rate during the interim period.
Yeah.
And then we move to whatever the new policy is. I don't know that there's going to be that big of a discrepancy one way or the other in the meantime. So I'm not sure it's worth, reconciling. But
Because otherwise, if we're lucky, and if we do nothing and wait, it could be October by this time. And I think because they've been working on this since 2020, we should make this variance change. Okay, your
Okay,
guys.
so we're almost cutting it in half,
It's huge,
right?
almost for the most part.
More than.
Oh, guys, it's 573, not 7 something. Either way. Let's hear what these two have to say.
Yeah.
Go
See
ahead,
what these
Russ.
fellas-
Okay, one way to kind of massage the numbers and justify this is it's been constantly said that they currently are being charged 1 EDU for water and 1 EDU for the sewer. But if you divide the, what was the factor, 2.2?
2.2.
Okay, 2.2 EDUs spread over 4, that is the equivalent of saying that they would, their effective charge is only 55% of an EDU going forward per unit. I like that or that number of 573.95 per billing period. So I would be in support of that.
Scott, do you have anything?
Yeah, I don't have anything more to add. Yeah, I don't like the idea. I like Michael's answer to your question, Cindy, about not trying to mess with the interim period. Just whatever policy we create, and if it is created in the second meeting in August, that is for all of our customers, regardless, so we don't go back and change anything. I am in favor of staff's resolution to the variance issue. I think which is 500 and something, and the savings of for the customer of over $700 for every 2 months billing.
Gotcha. And so that's billing like
That's based.
consolidated one master.
Well, so yeah, that's one of the questions we still need to clarify, right? So is the variance to consolidate the 4 customers into one at that rate? And I think that's probably the most straightforward way to do it. You know, the potential risk here is if we don't adopt a policy that makes that change, then you know, I think we have to leave the variance in effect, or we reestablish those.
Can we put a sunset on the variance, like a year or something?
We could, but then we'd be reinstating the other account, so I guess we can leave that off.
So what we're gonna do is you just gotta be encouraged to bring something back.
Oh,
You know, in a time we've had.
Which we're already clear about that. No,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out, you know, what there is, you know, potential variability there. So that, and I also want to make sure staff's clear on what the variance is. So we actually would be consolidating the 4 customers to 1 customer.
The master meter.
With the 5/8 inch water meter and the 2.2 sewer EDUs.
And with the master meter, with those savings, the customer now becomes responsible for collecting and doing something that we used to do. So there is a little bit of a trade-off here. And that helps me support this.
oh, okay.
Right, so
Yeah.
the property owner would be the only district customer.
Be a one
Right.
customer, and you also are responsible for maintenance and all that too. Yep.
So I'm just trying to think if there's any other variables that we need to clarify before we move forward.
Well, why
And
don't-
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong here, but probably the best, because the best way to do it would be to bring back a resolution that makes sure we have all the details right. And we can make it retroactive to today.
Yeah, but
But make sure that we have all of those details laid out in writing and adopted in the form of a resolution. I don't know if
adopting the
the
variance, why can't we just approve it here in the minutes and a minute entry to Bill, as you're saying? I mean, you can bring a resolution back, but you know, it's minute entry, it's, you know, roll call vote. But why do we have to wait one more meeting to approve this, or can we approve it? Can you add like a resolution on here now and then you make that kind of a change?
No.
We
This
could
is
do that. It's, you know, I think where we're dealing with variables like this, it's, you know, usually we want to have that kind of laid out in writing in
Use
advance.
the word resolution, because it would be, you know, back to what Cindy said, by minute
Right.
order or whatever,
Right.
because the
Well, that'd be kinda-
resolution means you have to
I do want to.
publicize it. And
I do want to hear from Matt on this, but wouldn't that, without us having a resolution in our packet and voting on the wording in the resolution and then signing it, there's not enough detail in
No.
a note that we make to ourselves about what's taken place here. And I mean, we've got to record, it, but there is no resolution. And Matt, I think Michael already called on you.
Yeah. So I was just waiting on, you would have to, I guess you technically could do it by minute order, but it's going to have, the problem is you have to be very specific. And so I think you can approve it today. And like Michael said, we can just bring it back and it could be even the consent agenda next meeting, effective today. So the economics on the customer, should you adopt it, will be the same. But I would prefer to have something that you looked at and everybody agrees is right, as opposed to us trying to pull everything down, capture everything in a way that we may miss something.
Right.
Okay, so we
just wanna
could
make sure
approve
we
it
are
today.
all clear on what all the details are, and it's better to do that. I
Yeah,
think we'll take
I
the
like
time to
that.
formulate the resolution, make it effective today.
As long as we
Right.
approve it today, and so on the next billing, which is going to be the 16th, that's when it would change. That's what I'd like to see.
It'll be the next billing for cycle 1 will be, it's happening this next week.
Okay, so,
so
that
that
change.
gets them in.
Uh,
yes,
that
yes.
billing data, I think, is already we're in process of.
yeah.
generating
So we
those
should be able to
datas.
issue them a credit.
Well, then let's adjourn the meeting
difference.
and go and find.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
then we're making it
okay.
retroactive for 2 months ago. What I think.
I want it to
cleaner would be
effective
be
right for
effective
today.
Today, so it'll show up in the next billing
Correct.
cycle. It won't show up in this coming bill because that's for the last 2 months.
Because it's already gone.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
The next billing cycle.
It'll be in September.
unless a board member
Right.
wants to make a motion to retro it back, Russ.
No, take a vote.
Well, I just want to make a comment that if we weren't expected to make an action today, then the agenda item shouldn't say discussion/action.
Well, we wanted to leave that possibility open. I just don't think it's, considering the variability in what we're adopting here, I think it would be, we can make it retroactive to today and bring it back in a way that is clear and detailed and everybody understands exactly what the terms of the variance are.
Well, if you won't do it, Russ, I will retroact it back. So the billing that comes out, I want them to start paying the lower rate right away. It's been 2 years. So, and whether it was their fault or the county's fault or whoever, I want to see them to have some relief. And if you all agree with me, great. If you don't, override me.
Override.
One. Bertha?
Russ?
Where's Jeff when we need him? So,
No, I know what he'd say.
I don't think that there's anything in the Benavides request for a variance that expected us to make a retroactive adjustment on this. I think that they are maybe taking a big chance on if we approve it so that it would begin with the next billing cycle. They're still taking a big chance that they have agreed in advance to adhere to whatever the policy change is going to be in the future. So anyway, I'm okay with it, just going ahead and starting the billing in the next cycle of bills.
All right, we'll leave it like that because we're.
I'm with
Russ.
Russ.
Molly, you got your 3, Okay, so there it is. It'll start your next billing cycle in September.
And I don't want anybody to misinterpret what I just said. I think that we conceivably could have moved this along a little faster. The responsibility for that may lie with both parties and maybe with the director of Division 4. Anyway, I
Um,
could have pushed harder on this, and I apologize for not doing it, but
All right,
Well,
so we have a
And I'm
motion
just, and
then.
I'm just happy that something's being done.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Okay, we need a motion and a second to approve the variance.
I would like
As
to make
we
that,
stated.
I'd like to, well, do we, okay, I can make the motion, but if there's any other comments from the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you got the motion. So now let's have public comment. Is there anything else you?
Second.
And we'll all
Okay.
second it.
I'll second.
Scott got it first. Okay, and so public comment, please. Do you have anything to say, Amanda? or- I'm sorry. Come on up. Say hello. You don't have to, just, you know, of course, yeah.
Good evening.
Hello.
They say I'm the owner of this building we're talking about, but actually the bank owns it. But one of the other issues I wanted to talk about is one of the tenants there is a coffee shop. And that's on a different parcel than the one we're talking about, but they're next to each other.
Separately metered.
Yeah. We're paying for sewer on that and they have no toilet.
Right.
There's no toilet at all there. They come over to our facility, the other facility, and use the toilet there. But we're paying for that price of having a toilet. So that's.
You're paying a
something-
base rate for sewer?
Pardon?
Yes.
You pay a base rate for
Because there is
sewer?
wastewater. There's no sewer, but they have sinks.
There's no
there.
toilet, but you have sinks that go into the
Right.
sewer, right? So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And so
something
that's,
to look at.
that's, there's a wastewater connection that serves that business. That's why there's the minimum 1 EDU charge for that connection. And we looked at the water consumption. There's actually a lot they actually consume a lot of water. And granted, a lot of that is, in the form of cups of coffee that are going out the window, but there is wastewater from that facility that we're processing.
do they have a grease trap on their sink?
I don't know.
So, yeah, well, but it's still there because coffee beans do have a little bit of oil or whatever.
Yeah,
but-
there's.
But but you are using the sewer though, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So whether there's a toilet or not, but everything that goes down the sink has to go to the
We're
sewer.
talking about a different property now and a different connection.
I'm just responding to him because.
Oh, it's not even on our agenda.
So anyway, that was the issue I was gonna bring up, and I understand, everybody's gotta make a dollar. But remember one thing, being in business for a number of years, is what you do to your customers makes the long profit make, not the short term.
Right.
If you think you're gonna lose some money in the beginning because you unjustifiably did something to your customer, you will pay for it later.
Because you won't have them there, yeah.
That's all.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment online? All right, seeing none, can we get a vote? We have a first and a second, we need a vote.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes,
Director Underhill,
Yes.
and President Cicada.
Yes. Okay. Resolved for the most part. Cindy, thank you.
Take a break.
Oh, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, everybody. End up stretch. Jeff's gonna be pushing me for causing a long meeting pretty soon. Are we unmuted yet? Okay, we're back, everybody. Russ and Scott, you're there, it looks like. So, per request, we're gonna take new business, item 4D and discuss that now. And then we'll come back to 4C. So item 4D, discussion action regarding the amendment of the fiscal year 2022-23 personnel allocation budget, and that will be Mr. Minkler.
And it actually is going to be Miss Lawler, who we probably just took by surprise. So I imagine she's
Uh-oh.
making her way to the boardroom right
Run,
now.
Stacy, run.
Sorry about the
All right, we'll
surprise.
give her a
And I was
minute.
just in her office stealing some candy and forgot to mention that to her. So.
Oops. You are amazing.
I went in.
Take
there
a
to
breath,
tell you
it's
we were gonna
okay.
Take this item now, and I got distracted by the bowl of Snickers. I'm sorry about that. So here we are.
Hi, Stacy. Thank
Hi.
you. All right, you're on.
Okay, so today, we are bringing a couple of different personnel, requests, allocation requests to you. One is a proposal to hire an additional employee in the, Information Technology Department and another position in the Water Resources, Department as well. I am going to kick off both of the positions. Jessica and Brandon will be available to talk about the IT department, and then Brad will be available to talk about the Water Resources Department. Okay. So in regards to the Information Technology Department, as you know, we've talked about it, about cybersecurity a lot in the last couple of years. JPIA's cybersecurity, our risk management company, our cybersecurity coverage was lumped into our liability coverage. And now it's become such a large issue that the premiums have increased just this fiscal year, 40 to 70%, and is now a separate liability premium that you actually have to be accepted to participate in, dependent on the security and level of your IT infrastructure and system and what you have in place. So this has been a concern of the district for many years. We've had about 4 or 5 different independent audits of our information system over the last 12 years. And in all of those audits, we have continually scored very low and have needed improvements. For the past 5 years, we've made a very concerted effort to try and rectify those issues. We've hired a managed service provider to help the district several times over the past 5 years to assist the IT department with end user support or special projects. Unfortunately, that did not prove to be resourceful to the district or to our employees. So it forced us to take a look at the IT department, at other IT department structures and other public agencies. And we come to you with a proposal to add an additional employee into that department based on the needs of just a basic overview and need of any IT department. We have come up with a total of 114 hours per week of work needed to be completed in the IT department. And this includes no special projects, no special implementation, which we have quite often. And these are just the basic tasks that need to be completed. With the new position focusing more on computer deployments and user troubleshooting, which would be their primary focus. Traveling to the different sites to help with that end user troubleshooting, and then other assistance to the IT administrator. That's all I have.
Hi.
I'm go first.
Just because you're
I'm
president.
pulling that, yeah. So real quick, I see all the cost for a new hire and stuff like that. what is going to be the change to our operating budget? For instance, for buying or building, getting software for the cyber security awareness? Is that something we build, or what can we expect for expenses over and above the IT, the new, wages? With all these changes that we have to do, patching programs, software, will we have to adjust our budget? And if so, you need to kind of tell us now, not that we're saying we wouldn't approve it, but I would prefer to have that all up front now instead of bringing back a budget revision to say, oh, now that you have hired this, we have this person, now we need more money. So is anybody looking at that?
So it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon or Jessica, that we have many of these systems in place. We don't have the staff to fully utilize the systems.
And I think,
And we got the wages in the budget, right? We know
Right.
that. We
and I
approved
think we
that.
budgeted also for the scope of work that we want to
Perfect.
achieve over the course of the next year.
Perfect.
If we have the staff to do it, but it's a good question, right? So is there additional, are there any other tools or technology, software, anything else that we would need if we bring an additional staff person on that isn't already included in the budget for next year?
Well, I would hope, since you guys did budget kind of for this, you should have been able to forecast all that, but just in case.
Just like the salary was included in the budget for this fiscal year, all items and things were also included.
Well,
So
good. I'm glad to hear that. So when you come back in 3 months, don't tell me you need anything else.
Okay.
Unless,
No
unless
city
we
saying,
learn new
"Thank you,
information.
We need new laptops.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Stacy.
Would you please explain to me, cybersecurity coverage will become a standalone program with premiums anticipated to increase by 40% to 70%. Will you just explain that to
That
me?
was the insurance you just talked about.
Right.
Right, so it used to be included in just our general liability insurance. And then that was fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 21-22. The premium increased, or liability premiums increased because of cybersecurity. And beginning this fiscal year, they took that cybersecurity component out and it's a standalone. So now you have workers' comp, liability, and cybersecurity. And the reasons for that is because of the amount of claims basically that they were paying out. It's such a large, it's such a major issue now. That now they're requiring, again, there's a, I think it's an 11-page application form where you have to tell them what you have done, what you've done proactively
Okay.
to secure your system.
Yeah, so I think it's not only additional or, higher claims and higher claim amounts, they're going to evaluate your eligibility to even have it. And then there may be variability in the cost, the premium, depending on what you have in place and whether you're being proactive enough to protect yourself against cyber
So the more
attacks.
money we put into this, potentially less insurance costs.
Exactly.
Potentially.
I went to the Aqua JPIA meeting this last May in Sacramento at the Aqua JPIA conference, which is part of the Aqua conference. And this was described in detail then, and Stacy is absolutely right. It is a separate coverage now, as a separate premium, and to be eligible for it, you have to jump through their hoops to even get the policy. But some of the numbers that they brought out in that presentation was staggering as to what cybersecurity is costing customers, is costing businesses. It's basically they hold you hostage, and you're a hostage to get your business back. And what people are paying for paying to recover their own systems is staggering. I mean, millions of dollars. And this district is no different than any other victims. Cybersecurity is the huge thing right now, and the insurance industry is changing, but not nearly as fast as that coverage is. The necessity for that coverage is changing. So they're just stepping back and looking looking at this new coverage and no one knows how much it should cost. The premiums that they're going to be charging could be ridiculous, and it may not even be sustainable to some agencies. But this is a huge deal.
Yeah, Scott, you're in the insurance. Does this insurance cover the ransom money that most people ask for when
From
this
what I
happens?
understand, it does. That's
Oh.
that's part of your loss, and that's what's so hard to establish and hard to figure what these losses are going to cost them as once they insure them. And they're probably going to come with a huge deductible as well.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for
Yes.
that. Bertha.
Well, that's still a healthy increase, so, but
Yeah. Russ, do you
cost
have
of
anything?
doing business.
Well, I do want to ask a question. Probably the barn door's already closed on this, but we had a breach a number of months ago. Should we have turned that into our cybersecurity coverage under JPIA?
We discussed it with him and it was lower, the damage was lower than the deductible.
Deductible.
We should have turned it in so that the deductible for the next claim would already be met.
Yeah, just would increase the insurance next time around.
Yeah, that and the deductible is per occurrence anyway. It's not per policy.
You're always throwing a wet blanket on what I say, Scott.
Well, if I could say something, to Brandon and whoever,
One to you.
if we approve this, which anyhow, could you give us an idea, or maybe Michael, you could report it? So for instance, for the cybersecurity at MSD, we have this program that does a backup, but it's not like a regular backup. It does some kind of a mirror. That's not my area. I just know that if somebody calls us and says, hey, you want your stuff back, you need to pay us this, I don't have to do that. So I'd like to know what your plan would be on how you would, protect that going future. Not today, but, I would like to know stuff like that if we hire another person.
My plan would be to call Pat and Ryan and, some of our other guys and send them out.
And go send them out.
Brandon,
Yeah, I like that.
Brandon might have a better plan though, so I don't know.
I don't need it today, but it would be nice to hear.
I'm happy to
Okay.
put together information and I've got plans. Kind of laid
It'd
out
be kind of,
some budgetary numbers as well for what that would look like for those applications. And some of those are factored into the next.
no, I heard all of it was.
Some of these are much more long-term.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Then since I'm talking, do you guys have a candidate in mind already, or is this going to be?
We haven't
No.
recruited, we haven't started recruitment yet.
What's
Okay.
the ask? What do you guys want?
So the personnel allocation amendment is the ask for this position and for the water resources
Yeah.
position we haven't discussed yet. If the board approves the personnel allocation amendment that we've asked for, we'll bring back at the next meeting because we need side letters to complete the implementation of this. We would probably start recruiting right away. But there's some other steps that administratively that we need to take.
One other question, does this IT department with 2 people, do they serve any IT needs, for instance, out at the treatment plant? Some of the equipment that does the talking, you guys take care of all that?
Not SCADA.
Oh,
That's
not
different,
SCADA,
but
okay.
yeah, they're computers and.
And we have SCADA people
networks.
that do that anyway.
Our electricians and we have a SCADA tech classification.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to amend the personnel allocation for fiscal year 2022-23.
Second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second before we move on. Russ, is there anything that you would like to comment on?
Well, I just want to understand whether, does Jeff's motion cover both positions or just this one?
No, just one.
No, it would. Sorry, that's
Yeah.
an important clarification. So the personnel allocation amendment request included in here, it add both positions.
Oh, okay.
The water.
So if we want to talk about the water resources position, we can do that now. It's fine to have a motion in a second and then
Yeah.
move to discussion. If we wanted only one or neither, that would have to change but I think the draft of the resolution that we included in staff's recommendation is to add both.
I think we're
positions.
okay with both at one
Yeah.
time. Russ, go ahead.
No, I was gonna suggest that we do approve both of them because I've got like Scott, I've got a commitment this afternoon that I would have to be leaving in about 10 minutes. So let's do it.
And no other changes?
I have one more.
SEIU?
I have one more thing. It's very much related to this issue, and I've talked about it before. I don't know that we've heard anything, but I like the way we did this allocation, addition of allocation with this much detail. And I wanted to thank staff. This is exactly what I was looking for, as opposed to hiring 2 new people with the budget process and everything that goes into that, and all the numbers that are involved with that, and that long process of looking at all those numbers and going through the finance committee as it did. Instead of just the adding of personnel is huge, and like Cindy has said several times, that it goes on forever. I mean, these costs for adding personnel is forever. It's for the next 10, 20 years of having that person on payroll. And so I do appreciate the detail that went into these staff reports and looking at, and even the comparisons for comparison districts and what they're doing. And I wanted to thank you guys for your effort in putting that in. And this explains it, and the need for these 2 new people is explained very, very well. But I do want to see if we can create a policy that going forward, that this is the way to do it, that not just including, if we know we're going to be adding 2 new people in the next budget year, fine, put that in the budget, and either before or right after that, like we're doing here, this could be done before we're explaining the personnel, so it's not holding anything up. But I would like to create a policy, a future agenda item, if you will, that we bring a policy back to look at that would separate those 2 processes, the budget process from adding personnel. 2 steps.
Very good.
Thank you.
I agree.
We can bring that back. My recommendation would be we just, as a matter of course, next year, we'll bring it back in advance of budget adoption, because I don't think this is the way to do it, where we wait until the fiscal year has started to make these kinds of decisions. But we can bring the personnel allocation to the board if there are going to be changes requested in May, and then factor that into the budget when it's adopted.
Michael, bring that
between now and
policy
then-
back just to say that, and that's
But-
fine. Just
but-
bring it in so we have a written policy.
But between now and then, can we create that policy?
Yes.
Just because it's on our minds right now, and if we are all agreeing with that, let's create that policy now and put it in our policy book, that's the way we're going to do it, and then
Right.
do it that way next year.
Yeah, we just directed him to do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
just want to make one
Wait,
comment.
let's do Russ real quick. Russ, do you have something to say or no?
Scott, was that a second to Jeff's motion?
We have a first and a second.
Oh, you do? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I stepped away.
And,
Right.
and I just want to clarify that with this motion, Brandon, you'll go to the management unit and then the new hire will be SEIU? Everybody
Yes.
good with that? Okay. Bertha?
Oh, no, Russ or Scott said about the detail that was put into this job description, and it's just mind-blowing that,
Perfect.
you were able to determine that you're going to spend 130 hours for Microsoft audits or 72 hours for new technology research. I mean, that means that you really dug into what this new position is.
But that's what you need to see when you're making a commitment for 20 years, plus.
No, and
Okay, we got to move on because they want to leave.
Oh, okay.
So,
Sorry.
we go ahead and take a vote. Is that okay? Any public comment online? Any public comment here? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Hey, Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes, and also echoing Scott's comments about the staff effort on this. That was great.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
President Cicada.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Are you two signing off?
I'm scooting out. Don't mess anything up, you 3.
Hey, we got Jeff here. How can that happen? All
All
right,
right,
bye,
thank you,
Scott.
everybody.
Russ, you're taking off too?
Yeah,
Well, you don't have to.
Well, I have
Just do
a,
us a little peace sign when you leave. All right, let's
Okay.
move on before Jeff wants to leave, then
Careful,
we'll be in
Dennis.
trouble. Okay, new business, 4C, discussion action regarding maintenance and warehouse building project phase 2 site improvements.
Good afternoon again.
Hello again.
Plumber Built is the contractor who constructed phase 1 of the courtyard project, the building and the site, the foundation site improvements. CCWD is very satisfied with the work that they completed. As a result, staff provided recommendation to the engineering committee that the district could work through a change order process to have Plumber Built can further complete the site improvements outside on the parcel. In the engineering committee was favorable to that recommendation. Plumber Built provided CCWD with a proposal in the amount of $475,600 to do that work, which includes paving, grading, and underground stormwater related work efforts for the site. And the fencing associated with the improvements. And so the ask is that the board approve the recommendation to accept a change order for Plumber Built to complete these improvements.
I'll move for acceptance.
I'll second.
Questions?
No, not today, no.
Okay.
We're just trying to move it along, you know.
Remember a couple of years ago, we talked about the water problem? Remember coming the way we are situated?
Right. So that's part of the work that they're going to do. So there will be a lot of underground drainage and culvert pipes installed, and you'll actually have drain inlets throughout the yard of the shop and warehouse to
Yeah.
capture any of that runoff, and the site will be graded to direct all that
Yeah.
water to those drain inlets and to convey it off site.
Yeah, because I remember Director Thomas was very concerned about that, right, Russ?
Did they fix it, Russ?
they did, yeah. I do have a couple of questions about it, and I'm not going to dissuade me from voting for this, but can I ask my questions now?
Yes.
Okay, I know that the shaded area on the staff report shows the AC paving, but I'm wondering how difficult it would be to go. There's an awful lot of that parcel that we bought that is left ungraded, and I think that maybe we should put some gravel or something on that area so that we could park, I don't know, elements out there where we could store piping and maybe a bunker for gravel and whatever that we might need on a weekend or a nighttime repair job. But I'd like for Kevin to put a pencil to that. And also, this is kind of, Jeff could answer this. The staff report shows that there's a 12-inch galvanized iron drain pipe. And I'm just wondering whether galvanized iron is the way to go for something that's supposed to last 50 years or more.
I couldn't understand the last part.
12-inch galvanized iron drain pipe, whether or not that's the best application for galvanized iron as a drain pipe for stormwater conveyance.
Honestly, I don't know that I'm overly qualified to tell you that. I mean, it's probably the most expensive right now.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of guys are using plastic.
They
I don't know
are, they are.
in the
And
long term.
I'm not sure either whether or not there's gonna be, whether or not it's a traveled pathway, so you need to have more of a structurally sound drain pipe. I'm not sure either. But we'll definitely reach out to Kevin and have him get some feedback from Plumber Built on that.
Yeah, I think that I heard one time that the county doesn't approve like a 12-inch PVC pipe at an encroachment. They I don't know, they haven't updated their specification to, at least at that time they hadn't updated it. But I don't know, I just see so many places that where road work is being done, and if you have to take out a galvanized pipe that has been in the ground for 20 or 30 years, it just comes out in pieces. So it just,
Right.
like for somebody to look at it, please.
Yep.
Will do.
Seen the same thing.
Where's
Will you bring
Harold,
that-
California? Harold, California?
Harold is right by Lodi.
Oh,
right,
so it's
yeah.
not far.
No, it's right between Lockford and Lodi.
Oh.
Damon,
Yeah.
will you make sure with the question that Russ just asked, or Michael, that you bring back an update, say in August, about his question about what you
Absolutely.
found out, just to put his mind at rest. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, any other question?
Ready
Seeing
for
none,
the
do we have a motion?
We do.
We do. All right, any public comment? Public comment online? All right, roll call vote.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
President Cicada.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, good job, staff.
Yippers.
Let's get this thing
Thank you,
open.
Director Thomas.
Let's, when do we have the grand opening?
It's one of those gifts that keep on giving. I don't know.
We will, probably when we get the interior improvements done. How about that?
How are you gonna have a dance?
If we get, yeah, Director Davidson's recommendation is when we finally get PG&E out here, we're gonna have a party.
All right, we're gonna move on. Thank you,
Didn't we just,
Damon.
we just
What?
spent a lot of money on generators. Hook up the generator.
There you go. All right, the GM report, Michael.
Sorry, are we doing the operations report?
Operation.
Oh, man, I flipped my page.
I'm happy to take questions by exception.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Anybody have questions for Damon on the report he handed us, which is so nice as usual? Thank you, Damon. Sorry about that. I flipped my page over and totally forgot you. Unless you have something you want to tell us? Nice. No. All right, Michael, to you.
Okay, I'll try to zip through these quickly. I mean, I think the big item that has come up over the last few weeks is the electrifier. I've been in touch with the board about that over the course of the event. Kudos to Damon and his team for being, really kind of on top of monitoring the whole situation, very close communication. We all had very close communication with Calaveras OES. And we were, had representation at the OES briefings. I think, Damon, I don't want to speak for you here, but I think based on previous experience, we were pretty impressed with the coordination among the agencies this time around. The circumstances were very different. The Butte Fire was same place, same terrain, but much faster, much more explosive weather conditions. And so this one, I think, was a little bit easier for them to respond to, but it also was a better response. A lot of the lessons that we learned from the Butte Fire, and we've all attended a lot of meetings on, lessons learned after the Butte Fire. I think we did see an improvement this time around. So just a, tremendous appreciation for CAL FIRE and how they just really hit it hard, from the very get-go. They made a really aggressive response, dedicated tons of resources to keeping the fire in the canyon, and they were successful in doing that. So it was kind of a good trial run for what we know can be much bigger, more explosive events. But happy to answer questions if there's any questions about the fire and the fire response.
Was there any, I had heard where exactly, but that there was some issue with backup generator in McCullough Hill, or were we alerted to any of that? Or heard that there was a potential failure over there due to lack of fuel? Or
I did not hear, and there weren't any requests to us for mutual aid for a standby. Yeah, there was no request for us. Perhaps they could have reached out to CPUD, but generally all of that was going through OES, and and we were kind of all in the loop, and that's what Michael talked about earlier. So but I didn't hear.
I'll try to get more. It just came up to me, but I just wanted to know if we had the ability to support that or not. I'm not exactly sure.
Not one I'm familiar with, but we did reach out to other agencies, and also want to mention other agencies reaching out to us right away too. See, East Bay Mud, Tuolumne Utilities District, other agencies were contacting me saying, "Hey, is there anything you guys need?"
The power was out there.
Yes, it was.
For a period of time.
And if there was a need that we do have trailer mounted standby generators, and if it was applicable size, we would have worked to meet that need for sure. Absolutely. And Michael's, to your point, we were all in communication regionally about who needs help and what's going on.
And to my knowledge, the only negative impact to a water agency, and we should check with Mokill Sanitary just to be sure, but CPUD said that they had, some of their meters were hit by bulldozers, but outside of that, it was pretty.
Well, I heard it was a Mobile sanitary, and that there was a buildup, or there was a potential spill into the river.
We'll make sure we follow up and clarify that. So like I said, that was kind of the big event over the last few weeks. We also had, so I was on vacation for a week. I came back to some really good news on a couple of different fronts. One was a really critical meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers that Damon and John Griffin and I don't recall who else from our staff was in on that, Charles, and led by Mia. It's a meeting we've been waiting for quite a while
You were
now.
on vacation.
And I was trying to call in, but I didn't have cell service where I was, but I also wasn't concerned because we had put a lot of prep into it, and our team is just phenomenal. And sure enough, they knocked it out of the park. Really good outcome from that meeting, and the Army Corps representative came down and met with staff, took a tour of facilities.
Nice.
We're really pleased with how they reacted or responded to where we are in the design process for the $1 million in funding that we already got from Congress, and how we're going to work together to manage that project implementation, and how we can get their support for bringing in the much bigger ticket item here is the Pond 6 dam raise. So I think it probably, you guys were in the meeting, but correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably as good of an outcome as we could have expected.
Yeah, a lot of enthusiasm related to the project. The local project manager, Mark Ellis, is great. He's got a deep background with the Army Corps. He's been involved in a lot of what they would call this a small project. And he said those are his bread and butter. And he grew up in Escalon, so he has an affinity for the region. And so he's very excited. And so we had a meeting on Wednesday, and he was here on Friday. And
Wow.
so, yeah.
Right. And we were pretty concerned just not having implemented a 218 project with the Corps before, a 218 section. Wow, I'm getting my 200s mixed up here. But anyway, not having implemented one of these projects with the Corps, there was some concern that, they were going to say, okay, we'll take it from here and send you a bill for everything over $1 million or something along those lines. And that wasn't at all the case. It sounds like this is going to be a really positive working relationship going forward. So really good news on that front. We also got bid results that same week on the Copper Cove Lift Station improvement project, and I think we anticipate that coming back to the board at the next board meeting. And those were pretty close to what our engineer's estimate was. So it's an expensive project, so it's still going to cost us a lot of money, but we were, I think, relieved at where the bid came in. We had a productive meeting with the project manager and consulting engineer for the Jenny Lind Elementary School project yesterday. That project is, we're kind of at 30% design at most, and there's some design changes that we're still considering. But I think we made a lot of progress yesterday, and I think we'll probably be bringing back some updates to either the engineering committee or the full board in the near future on that project. Also had really productive meeting in West Point yesterday. I really appreciate Director Davidson and Director Cicada making the effort to be there to meet with CHIPS representatives from CHIPS and Phoenix Energy to discuss the biomass project that we're considering partnering with them on up there. And I look forward to the board getting more information on the project, and it's I think an exciting opportunity. Also, the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, there's been a flurry of activity. Is that a good way to put it, Brad? Yeah. So I think we'll have multiple items coming back to the board at the next board meeting to take some action on and to discuss the issues that we've been contemplating of late. I think that we will anticipate at the next board meeting. Also, I just want to mention briefly, since Director Ratterman had to jump off, and I'm not stealing his thunder this time, but that Mountain Counties tour happened. I was only there for a small part of it, unfortunately, but there was a lot of good discussion with other agencies and the forest management agencies in particular, and some good information from EID. I want to have some follow-up discussions with them on their response to the Caldor fire. But just really underscored the importance of the forest management work. And the CAL FIRE representative was very clear about saying they weren't even in a position to fight the fire until it reached a point where the fuels had been thinned, and where forest management work hadn't been done. Even if they wanted to make a stand, they couldn't. Fire was just traveling too fast through the canopy, and they couldn't make a stand until they got to points where the fuel had been thinned. And it's just that, I think that's those kinds of lessons learned from these new mega fires that we keep seeing are just really critical to continue to emphasize. Looking forward very much to staff bring kids to work day tomorrow, and staff meeting and gathering at White Pines Lake tomorrow, and really hope board members can be there to the extent possible. And if you can't be there this week, we'll make sure that we plan future events similar to it.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely.
Cindy?
Depends on what it is, Brad. I don't know. Where's
Yeah.
this going?
I promise it's nothing controversial. I just wanted to alert the board, and good afternoon, by the way, that at the end of June and beginning of July, we had a surprise inspection by the State Water Resources Control Board looking at all of our points of diversion on our water rights. They contacted Dave and the staff on a Wednesday, and by that Friday, they were out here and we were digging into, long since forgotten gauges and dams and everywhere across all three of our major watersheds. I just want to point out operations staff, thank you to them for supporting my work with the state board staff. We were able to answer all their questions and able to show that we are complying with the curtailment order. So just wanted a heads up. I've now seen most, if not all, of our points of diversion and verified them. And I think we got a passing grade, if you will, from the state board.
Oh,
Good job, everybody. All right.
Speaking of surprise inspection, that just brought to mind we got I don't know if it's surprise inspection, but the EPA notified us
Yeah.
on very short notice that they were going to be at White Pines Lake doing some water quality
When,
testing.
tomorrow?
No, they were there.
Yesterday, Monday. They were there Monday. But what they didn't tell us, even on the short notice, was that they were going to put a motorized boat in the lake, which we don't allow.
Wow.
And so we heard about right away. And kudos to Jessica for kicking them out. So
Good girl.
we may hear from the EPA on that, but we had an opportunity to remind them that they have to follow the rules too.
Jessica for pissing off the EPA.
Yes,
Shoes on. We don't want any motor boats out there.
that's
We
exactly.
want to see how that pans out.
That's exactly what we're doing. So, right, if,
We did good.
I think it was an important, those rules apply to everybody.
Yeah, we'll show them.
Absolutely.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
If it
Thank you,
backfires on
Brad.
us, though, it'll be Jessica's fault too.
Thank
So
you,
just to make Sure
everybody.
that that's clear.
So next board, oh wait, let's do board reports. Jeff, you have anything?
Do we have closed session?
Not yet. I'm doing the board reports, next
have,
board
nothing
meeting,
to
then closed session. Thank you. Bertha, do you have anything to report?
Okay, I was just gonna talk about the motorized thing, but it made the White Pines Park Committee very happy that CCWD was on it, just like that, because
Nice.
they just never saw anything like that before.
Well, and thank you to Director Underhill. That was how we found out about it. We didn't know
Oh,
that there was a motorized boat in the lake until I got a call from Director
Oh,
Underhill.
nice.
That's how we were able to-
Good job, Bertha.
Okay.
Get to them EPA people.
With Jessica's help.
Yes.
I was flipping through this Aqua newsletter and it talked about coming up against customers who exceed 150% of their water budgets, and we do have water restrictors. And so I was asking Jessica if we've ever used anything like that against any of our customers. So that's interesting to know that we have that.
They're out there.
That they're out there and they,
You better keep an eye on your water, Bertha.
okay. And I don't know how many people have heard, well, I know you've all heard about Meals on Wheels. And you've heard about the Silver Street Transport, and this is done by Common Ground. When people, older citizens don't have the means to get to doctors, they can pay a couple of dollars and get transported to Sonora or, wherever their doctor is. They will have a Common Ground Senior Services will have a 22 years of service fundraiser on Saturday, July the 23rd from 5 to 8 at Greenhorn Creek. And it would cost you $50 to have we're going to be doing dinner, buffet, a bocce tournament, raffle, silent and live auction, and music by Route 88 Band. You heard of them, Damon? Okay, if anybody's interested, I can fix you up. One of the things that I always read in the special districts newsletter or booklet is Pete Campa, because he's been for years, he was there with
He was
the
at
special
CCWD
district.
and
He's
CCWD.
not around anymore?
He is.
He
but
is.
he's- Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
He's with, what are the two areas that he's working on? The
Sour Creek
lakes?
CSD.
Yeah, he does a little bit more consulting,
Yeah.
different places.
Okay,
But he's still around.
I didn't see his name in here, so I was just wondering if he was still around.
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay. Other than that,
Okay. Thank you, Bertha. Russ, he signed off? Right? Okay, so it's to me, just to note that the TSAN IRWM, their meeting's next Wednesday, and they're doing a field trip to the Jamestown Sanitary District. And so I'm gonna go do that. And for future agenda items, bring back a policy for the new hire at some point, hopefully in August. We don't want to forget about it. And you're gonna bring back an update for Russ regarding, yeah. All right, so the next board meetings, Wednesday, July 27th and Wednesday, August 10th. And now we're gonna go into closed session. Government Code 54957.6, agency negotiators. General Manager Michael Minkler, HR Manager Stacy Lawler regarding negotiations.
Thank you all.
bye.
Thanks, you guys. See you next time. And conference with real property negotiators regarding West Point Agency. Excuse me, I'm trying to make this really quick.
You wanna
Bye.
come back into that one?
Anyhow, Calaveras Healthy Impact Product Solutions, price and or terms of payment. Do I do a public comment? Is there any public comment online regarding closed session items? Seeing none. All right, let's go into closed session at 3:21. Is that good?